but I won't. Yeah. He's kept fish his whole life. I believe he grew up in Southern California. He said, I believe. And in the mid-'80s, moved up into the San Jose area. Got involved with the Pacific Coast Cichlid Association, was the president there a couple of times, became involved, he has been involved with the American Cichlid Association for many years, he's been the chair of the American Cichlid Association, he's been involved in many committees, he's a life member of the Pacific Coast Cichlid Association, he's a life member of the American Cichlid Association.
And he's the current chair, by the way.
Oh, is he the current chair? Oh, okay.
If you remember, you know.
If I'd read his bio, I would know he's also the current chair of the American Cichlid Association. He's traveled the world extensively and has been to both Lakes Malawi and Tanganyika. And he is here with his lovely wife tonight to give us a program on a little bit of a comparison of the two lakes, which I hope you'll find as interesting as I'm sure I will. So without further ado, Chuck Rambo.
So who's been on a collecting trip? See? Thought you guys would be here. The rest of you, why not? What are you waiting for? Well, probably waiting on time, probably a little bit of money. But the important thing you're missing out is the planning. You got planning. You got to pick things at the right time when things are ready to go. You know, both in your personal life, business, also when you have things ready to go. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is a trip that my wife and I took in 2002 to Lake Tanganyika, and in 2003 to Lake Malawi. We kind of hit like a golden time right there. The reason I say that is because all the flights I had hooked up at that time, we could take one flight from San Francisco to London, and then from London down to Lilongwe in Malawi and Lusaka down in Tanganyika. So one flight over, one flight done. We could check all our luggage in San Francisco, and it would all show up in Africa all together. Now those flights no longer exist. They quit doing those about 5-7 years ago. Now it's kind of like planes, trains, and automobiles where you take multiple flights with different airlines, and you hope your stuff shows up. Pam's been on some recent trips to Africa where she now goes to South Africa, tries to get the planes to hook up, and sneaks her way back up. So we kind of went at a time that was really good to go because the flights were convenient and things were pretty stable in Africa. We didn't have Ebola back then or other things.
Totally.
So,
97?
so
Sorry.
it was a good time to go. So when you think about going to Africa, but sometimes I'm sponsored by ZoomEd Labs on there, and also the American Cichlid Association. Those booklets over there are past Budvar's bulletins, so if you're interested in cichlids, we got a few bulletins over there for you to check out. So when you go to Africa, it's not like around here. Well, it may be like some areas of Sacramento, I'm not sure, but
we know you took that picture in San Jose.
how about this one? Makes it a problem driving at night. You can guess. So you're thinking, well, now how could this be? You know, around here, we kind of plan things. Well, what happens is in Africa, these roads aren't built by Africans. They're built like by the Japanese or Norway or things like that. So what they do is when they vote on whaling, the countries get together and they actually get African countries to vote on whaling, even though a lot of these aren't even connected to the ocean. So they bribe these African countries, say, we'll build a road for you, and then you guys just vote on it. And then next year they put in the telephone lines, but they don't kind of coordinate them going through there like that. But Japanese, Chinese, other countries outside, the ones for a lot of the infrastructure in lots of different parts of Africa. Getting around can be a problem. Now, we had, in 2002, we had taken a van from Lusaka, which is the capital of Zambia, 18 hours on a bus up to the lake. And that van we had was a private rented van, or else you take public transportation, which isn't much fun. But this is, you think, oh, this is some freak picture. No, you see this all the time. This is not a, oh, we'll never see it. No, it's all the time you can see this kind of stuff. They don't have OSHA in Africa. So they tend to do things without the same resources that we have here. You see these guys fixing the pool and stuff like that, you know, obviously there's no ladder, they don't want to get their footprints in there, it'll dirty it up. But when we were in Malawi in 2003, the transmission had gone out on a van. This one guy dropped the transmission with the help of his friends with ropes and rocks. They kind of rolled it up on a hill, and then they got some big levers underneath with rocks, kind of lifted it up and did the bolts and kind of dropped it down. You see that kind of stuff happening there all the time. Very low in resources, but very, very resourceful people.
Chuck, in our fancy van in 2002, remember about 12 feet of exhaust or maybe more fell off on that dirt road.
Yep.
And they just stopped the van and took it and they strapped it on top right next to all of our luggage. So we got there and there was actually like burn marks and things to go with the dirt. It was all
On the luggage.
on the luggage. Yeah.
Absolutely. So Africa ain't like around here. In fact, when things go wrong and break down like Rich shows, Odd Konings, I talked about a little bit, he goes to Africa numerous times. He's got a little saying, AWA, Africa wins again. No matter how well prepared you go, no matter what you bring, something's going to break down, something's going to happen, and it's just going to happen. Africa wins again. Let's talk about Rift Lakes. These are the lakes that we're talking about here, Tanganyika and Malawi. Now, what's a rift lake? Rift is a earthquake fault, where instead of coming together like in California that we know so well, in some areas of the world they break apart. When they break apart, they get weak, and volcanic forces kind of push them up and create mountains. So as they break them apart, you have this ridge going across here, and the rivers that used to go across them now start filling up these voids. Got a number?
10 and 84.
84
10.
here.
Okay, perfect.
Bingo!
Yeah, bingo.
So anyways, as these fill up, you create these lakes. And these lakes have been filling up for almost 20 million years. Somewhere between 3 and 20 million years it takes for these things to fill up. So the fish that have been in there have had to adapt from living in rivers to now living in lakes. They've had a long time to do it. Now up here you got Lake Victoria. Lake Victoria is not a rift lake. It's surrounded by rifts. The mountains come up, and Victoria is different, where it's basically a collective basin, very shallow, very wide. These lakes are very deep, and also they're isothermic. They're heated by volcanic action underneath, so they're relatively stable. Those of you that keep Malawi fish, you see it's a little bit further south. It's a little bit cooler. Keep your Malawi fish at 80 degrees. You're keeping them too warm. I keep them in the low, mid 70s. But Tanganyika stuff, you can definitely handle the 80s in it. So where the fish come from definitely make a difference in how you take care of it. These rifts make nice borders. Here you see Tanzania, or Tanzania as Rich likes to call it. Zambia, the Congo, different areas up here. So first time when you go up here to Lake Tanganyika, we only went around the bottom part down here. I know Pam and subsequent trips have gone up here to Kapili, farther up the lake, but my talk's going to continue, going to emphasize this lower area along here. In Malawi, we landed over here in Malawi. You can see it's very shallow. It's very short distance to the lake to where the airports and stuff are. When in Zambia, we landed down here, took a bus all the way up to the corner, and then took a boat ride over to the side, over that way. Malawi, we landed in Malawi, just came right over here to Kapili Point. It's actually more like down here. And then took boat rides up and down, check out Malawi. So here's the capital, just kind of give you some idea. You can almost see the road we took going up here. So Lusaka is the capital of Zambia, so we went up to London and flew down to Zambia, and then took the van 18 hours straight going up there. You got any reptile people here? Here you go. If you go looking for snakes, you usually do night drives at night. So the flashlights will catch the snakes going across the road, warming themselves up. So you usually find snakes. So when I did this trip, I sat in the front so I could see anything that was coming across. So it was like night driving for snakes in Africa. So I thought we'd see all this cool stuff. All we saw were people. People all over the roads, all the way through day and night. It's too hot during the day, so everybody does their walking around at night and stuff. There's no sidewalks. They're on the road. So there's no way we were going to see much of anything going across there whatsoever. When we went to Malawi, we landed a long way, just a 2-hour ride across there, rode in the back of a pickup truck. We got picked up in a van going across. Malawi is a much easier trip. If you ever want to go to the lakes and you have to pick one between the other, definitely go to Malawi, land shorter trip. and it's a little more civilized. So you go to Africa, you think, oh, we're going to see the great African plains. Not really. You get off the plane, you smell smoke. Everything's on fire. They're making charcoal. They don't have jobs and things like that, so they're always cutting down whatever trees they have and they're burning everything. You smell smoke the whole time it's there. And you guys get the breeze from the fires up here in the foothills and stuff during the drought. The wind changes direction. It's like that all the time in Africa. Everything's on fire. You see smokestacks, not smokestacks, but you see people, what they do is make charcoal. So they'll cut this up, burn it, then bury it in a low oxygen content and make charcoal out of it. And that way it's a resource that they can sell, that they can use and move around. Because they don't have gas, very rarely, some places have electricity. And so this is something that they use to cook with, which is good. So we're going to talk about Tanganyika first. So we took our little van ride all the way up to the corner here in a little town called Umpalungu. A lot of the towns have names that start with M or N, things like that. And when people start pronouncing them, they start humming. Palungu, Ngari, you get this humming type thing in the front. We took a boat ride over here to the side to Calandro Falls Lodge. That was set up and built as both a little hotel and also a fish collecting and export station. So we're coming up in the boat, and this first thing you see we're in this valley where the hilltop comes down, and underwater, this same slope projects straight down. It doesn't all of a sudden hit the water and get flat, it continues to go down, down, down. So we're driving up, and this little A-frame will be kind of like the reference. You see this A-frame over the side here? The docks and stuff are over here. This side, on the south side, is the fish collecting station. Over here on the north side, that's where the people come and stay. So the boat pulls up on here, and here you see these little chalets kind of popped over here. We want some Canadian guys. They're all worried about Al-Qaeda, so they hung their Canadian flag out there because they're wimps. And everybody got their own little chalet and stuff. As I recall, I think Rich and Laura had the one right next to us. They had the mamba skin up over the top. You know, kind of reminded, hey, we ain't in Kansas anymore. So they had this nice little walkways. They kept everything well irrigated. It was very nice.
Yeah,
Up inside, you got these luxury accommodations. We basically got a futon. We had brought sleeping bags because we didn't know if we were going to be camping or what we're going to be sleeping on. Basically concrete floors, these grass mats, and mosquito netting over the top. That, was kind of, maybe was trying to intimidate the bugs to keep away. A lot of these had holes in them. You'd wake up and see the mosquitoes doing little figure eights inside there, you know, going, okay.
oh, I know.
We had showers, we had running water, we had hot and scalding water. So you had flushing toilets. We brought our own REI biodegradable soaps and shampoos because all this drains into the lake. We wanted to be green. We'd come here and bring our stuff that would pollute everything.
The pink soap.
The pink
Yeah,
soap.
that's from Africa. That's the biggest bars of soap.
5-pounder.
I know, it's crazy.
Costco size soap from Africa, you know. So I'll talk about the hot and scalding water in a minute here. So everybody pretty much met in the big A-frame. The big A-frame provides shade. It was much cooler because all the heat would rise up. There's actually a pair of birds that were living in the top there. Going up in there. But that's where everything pretty much happened. We'd have our meals in there. We'd socialize at night. We'd have some electricity. We'd listen to BBC One on the radio, which is the only station we could get. And it's pretty much like camping. But these guys here, he took some of his fish catchers and they set up these nice tables and stuff for us, and they brought them shirts. These guys are so proud they had shirts. They didn't have holes in them and stuff. That's where we were doing our meals over there. So we'd go eat breakfast, and then we'd walk over here and check out the ponds, or the vats, so to speak. So you see all these concrete vats, all these were built by hand. You don't have trucks coming up, things like that. Those guys built all these things from concrete, bags of concrete, and rocks that they found on the site right there. You put them all together, and then they have these wood beams suspending the netting. Netting does two things. Number one, it shades it. It's very hot in Africa. Very hot. Number two, it keeps birds and things out. There's a lot of things that would love to come in here and eat these little fish. And so it does two things. Monkeys. So you look inside there, cool, there's fish in there. So these are Tropheus. These are Limbe Tropheus. They have yellow bands on the side. And they're just like kids in a candy store. They're doing great down there. Because what they're doing is they're eating the algae and stuff that grows up on the side. That's kind of what they did in the wild and stuff. They're algae eaters. So they got Tropius in there. But there's no electricity per se. I'll get to electricity in a minute. So what they do, they change water every day in every vat. 89% water change every day. So we're watching the fish. These guys get these garden hoses going, and we're siphoning all the water out in every vat. If they forget, everything's dead. When we were there, they left a vat of white Calvis. Very expensive. Nice one. They forgot to change that one. All of them were dead the next day. With those high temperatures, that much holding capacity in the water, you need to keep that water going. So there's no filters, no electricity, no aerators, no pumps. Everything's done by big water changes every day. So they're siphoning the water out, and when you get enough vats going, you start getting these little rivers flowing down through the creeks and through the walkways and stuff. Very wet, very slippery, because they're siphoning all this scum and everything else that are coming out of the ponds and that. And everything goes down into Lake Tanganyika. There's a big storage tank up on top. So what do we do? Every morning he'd fire up a generator, and the generator would make electricity for about 3 hours. So, wow, we got electricity. So if you want to charge anything, that's the time to start plugging stuff in. The generator's going, so that means the compressor was going to fill up the air tanks. It means the pump is going now to fill up the storage tank up above. So the idea is every day we fill up the tank, and then that uses gravity to come down and fill all the vats and stuff up later in the day once they're all siphoned out. So here we are, we're getting ready to go on our dives and stuff, and as opposed to other collecting trips that you see people go snorkeling in streams or creeks, I've been in Minnesota catching darters, which is different techniques. Ron's been to Central America numerous times, where he's gone snorkeling and done some diving, but mainly when you're talking about fairly shallow bodies of water. This thing here is miles deep. Now, we're not going miles deep when we go snorkeling, but if you want to see stuff, it's better if you're a certified diver. There are no dive shops around, so you got to bring all your gear. So imagine, one of the things that we went, they didn't charge for luggage. Nice. Now it probably costs you $200, $300 as just an additional luggage fees to get your stuff down there. Yeah, you had to bring weights. The only thing we did have to bring was tanks. And these are not little tanks. These are big steel tanks that make sure they're extra heavy, like from World War II Army surplus stuff. They're not quite pressure checked like the ones at the dive shops around here. Oh, you're out of date. No. These have been out of date for centuries. So we got the gas compressor going on here, electric compressor going on. We put them in there so we keep them cool. That way we get more air and stuff inside there as much as we can. So we're filling up the tanks, looking at fish as we're going around. And these guys are getting their boat ready by fixing the leaks. That's always encouraging. So they're taking palm oil in with cotton, and they're wedging it in the seams that was leaking. So this guy here is taking it, rolling it up into like a little twine, and then the other guys here are dipping it in oil and wedging it in between the planks of the boat so it doesn't leak as much. All the boats leak.
That's right.
It's just a matter of how much they leak. It doesn't matter because when you're out there, there's always someone bailing the whole time. Now we're going out there miles offshore. We got this big leaky boat. We're out there. We hope they're bailing while we're down there diving and stuff. But there's been quite a bit of water in the bottom sometimes when we come back up. I think they'd make us feel better by bailing it on the way back. Yeah, okay, here you go.
We'll work it.
Yeah. I don't know what this means, but I think it means my kid was student of the month at the local school, So all right, they're fixing the boat for us. So in the meantime, while we're fixing the boat and all that, this is, you were showing pictures of the Tropius and stuff there. This is the guy we were staying with. He actually was doing some breeding on site here. He's breeding Tropius. Now, the ones he's bringing here are the Alongi Tropius, which I'll get into in a minute, but each little batch of rocks around there has a male. That's his territory. All the rest are females. You'd have like maybe one male, 14, 15 females. You really want to get these breeding and get them going because they're very rare in the lake. They come from one rock outcrop about the size of this room and nowhere else. So when they're over collected, they don't get any more. So you want to try and breed them so you don't have to go out and collect them from the wild. So He's got all these territories from maybe 6, 7 males to maybe 100 females in there. Very high ratio. This is what they look like. See, very pretty. But they come from one area about the size of this room, and that's it. It's probably one of the prettiest of the Tropius. You guys got some?
No,
Why not? I was hoping
because
you
I
did
don't
something.
believe they're
There's
still
no
around.
more
There's no
in
more.
existence in the lake.
Oh.
They're gone.
They're gone?
They're
Already.
gone. No more.
So what he was
And
trying to...
whoever has them before 1979, or
No,
have the
79.
89.
89, they have the original, what's
Yeah.
left.
So I just doubt there's any.
So what happened is, when they started collecting these, there's another one that started moving in from the side. That's called Chalanga Red. Very similar, but not nearly the same fish that we were talking about, the bright yellow sides and the purple head and things like that. So they think like the Chalanga Red slowly moved in on that territory and either hybridized or took over. So the elongies that they get from this area are no longer true ones like Gary and Pam were talking about. But the original fish was spectacular. So when he's not breeding Tropius, he's breeding other things. The Julidochromis, I'm sure you see, the Lake Tangican substrate spawners, they would breed them in these vats and basically put 3 piles of rocks on both sides. Now if you ever tried to force cichlids together to breed, it doesn't work. So what happens is the female hides over here, the male hides over there, they throw in the food in the middle, they come out, and eventually they get to know each other, and they got a shot at breeding. They're big enough to where the female can go hide, and eventually build enough strength where they can go out. Eventually, they may start hooking up and start to breed. So now we're putting the water back in. So that big tank you saw above that we pumped the water back in, they've got this 4-inch ABS plastic hose that they're dragging around, filling up all the vats. So all the water pumped up in the morning fills up, and so if you don't do it, everything dies, it's not in there. I took my camera and stuck it underneath the water in one of those vats. Look at all this precipitation. Yeah, the water is so hard and alkaline there. It's actually precipitating on the side of the vats. pH up there is, up in the 8s, maybe 9s. And then you got this evaporation going on, so all the minerals are staying behind and they're building up on the side of these vats, up inside there. So you get the idea, very hard alkaline water. Now, the Tropius eat the algae and stuff there off the sides. What about the non-algae eating fish? The fishermen go get worms from the river, just the Calambo River, just down the road a little bit. So this guy's taking a coffee can lid and he's cutting them up. That's his knife. Cutting them up, and they'll feed the Calvis, the Lamprologus, the Frontosus, things like that. This is Toby. This is the guy that ran the place at the time. He's over here. You see he's got all the rocks out. He's going to start catching the Tropius. Look at the barnacles on the side. Those aren't barnacles. That's that calcium we were talking about, building up on the side there. Just to give you some idea how hard the water is there. You may think your water's hard. It's not as hard as Lake Tangico. So now we're getting ready to go out. So sometimes we were waiting for the boat trip and that, we go snorkeling and stuff. So this is the front of Toby's place. And you see all these dark blotches over here? You know what that is? Those are plants. Tanganyika has plants. I know everyone that sends up the Tanganyika tank, they do anubias, they do Java fern, all these things that you never find in the lake. But these are plants in the water. And they go for about maybe 1.5 feet down, 2 feet, where they're not beat up by the waves. Down to about 6, 7 feet. Then it starts getting, the water isn't carrying enough light to support plants much down below that. But there's lots of plants in Tanganyika, especially in the shallows. Here you have where the wave action hits, but all this is plants from here on out. So we're quite interested to see the plants because they've never been imported and you never seen the aquarium trade around here. So anybody ever keep the Lamprichthys killifish besides Rich? The best killifish comes from Lake Tanganyika. It's about 5 inches long, bright metallic blue spots over the side. They live in the shallows above these plants, but they eat the lake flies that they pick up over on the side there. Only found in a couple inches of water. You never see 2 males together. If the other one sees it, just like, 2 males do not get along. But this is where you find the killifish and stuff, over here in the shallows on the side there. So let's go underneath, and here we are. Look at these plants over in the sandy areas over here. There's basically only 3 plants though. You've got the hornwort that's in here. And the hornwort, the nodes are very compressed, tight together, and not spread out like we see them around here. They're almost like a wire brush. They're very tough, very nasty, and very compact. Then we got this Ponageton, not a Ponageton, but Ponageton, this long stringy thing that comes up. And it's very interesting, it gets very big. And then over here, we've got some Vallisneria. It only grows in between the rocks, where the rocks can protect the roots for the Vallisneria. The fish don't pick it up. But you go in here at night with flashlights, you see how it's like a little rookery. Lots of little fish around there. See little baby trophies hanging in there. There's baby now perch in there, little eels, all kinds of little things and stuff. Rich and I did a little experiment. One day, after we were diving and stuff, we saw these little fish around, so Rich and I built this weir out of rocks. You pick up this rock, I had a net at the bottom, and the fish would come out, and we'd pick it up, we were catching all kinds of stuff. Little baby eels, little Eretmodus, goby cichlids, and things like that. We're like, guys, you can be catching all kinds of things. You don't need to be going out. This is great. You guys ought to be doing that. Then Rich flipped a rock, we picked it up, and we're looking in the net. Rich and I are looking at each other, and there's a snake in the net. So we're kind of like, gee, Rich, I don't think this is the eel. You're right, Chuck, it's not. I hope it's not one of those water cobras they keep talking about. So we decided, well, maybe that's why the natives don't do this. Because we thought we had this great idea, and we were going to run life, the fish business, we were going to quit our jobs, move here, and we were going to flip rocks catching fish. And all of a sudden, our dreams were shattered in one minute.
You were holding the net.
I was holding it in. I was going, right, look at it. You're a reptile guy, Rich. Here, you look at this. You know?
They weren't wearing shirts.
Yeah.
No protection.
So anyway, that's what you get in the shallows and stuff. As you move out a little bit deeper, you see the plants are growing up, but what happens is the algae starts building up on the end of the plant, and the plant doesn't grow anymore. Because there's actually so much algae building up there, so they don't quite make it to the surface. So you have like this little zone in there where they don't get enough light, they don't grow, but then they get sunlight, but then as they get closer to the top, they get too much. And then the plants start growing with these little caps on them. But you can see we got little fish all over the place in there. It's a great little rookery. There's eels, all kinds of neat stuff in there. When you get past that, you get up to the rock zone out here, then there's nothing. It just looks like, and they're not arranged in any particular way. It looks like you took a truck and just backed a bunch of boulders and riprap off the end and stack-piled it back in there. It's exactly what it looks like. Nothing's rearranged. So if you want to do the technique and biotope, just throw a bunch of rocks in there, don't worry about where they are, and you got it. You look at all these cichlids. They are all over the place, different ones all over. You don't have to go diving for a long time to start seeing them. You just put your face in the water and they're there, right from the get-go.
Is it really that blue when you're down there, or is that camera effect? Like, is it that bright and vibrant? Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's very clear.
Very
When we get to Malawi, in the islands, they're farther away, it's even more clear than that. So where we're at, you saw the rocks that come all the way down. We have beaches and sediment, then it gets a little bit cloudier, you have to go a little bit farther out. Sure, like in Kapili where Pam was going, it's pretty clear up there because there's no beaches around, it's like a rocky point. So when you go out there, it's much clearer and you have much more visibility and stuff.
And we were drinking the water. We just take the regulator out.
well, we're just drinking the water out of the lake.
Yeah, so
right out of the lake.
so everyone's worried about,
Dangerous.
No,
not really.
That
No.
isolated.
let me tell you about the water. So what happens is you can drink it out of the lake, okay?
Awesome.
But we put it in little plastic bottles, and an hour later it had gone putrid, so something died in there. So it didn't hurt us, but there's definitely something around in there. It just didn't happen to hurt us. Yeah, an hour later you can smell it.
That's
Wow, what
bacon
happened to the
in the
water,
sun.
you know? And then,
I just added more gin.
Malawi, the big drink is MGT, Malawi Gin and Tonic. You don't want to take quinine for malaria. Gin's got quinine in it. Why not, right? You learned that from Ott.
Oh, that's what Steve's.
Yeah.
It works.
Well, Steve Lundberg, guys that went in the early 90s before all these medication stuff were around, he went with some English guys that were teetotalers. And so all the Americans that went there were drinking like fish, not water, but booze and stuff. The two guys that didn't, those are the two guys that got malaria. Everybody that drank alcohol did okay. Two guys that didn't, they're the only two that got malaria. So there's a message there somewhere. So anyways, we went with Ott Konings. Ott's the one that writes all these books and stuff on all these rift lakes. He goes there about 3-4 times a year, maybe not so much anymore, but at one point in time he went there quite a bit. So he knows where everything is, he knows everybody, and so we kind of hooked up in groups. And the group I went with Rich and Laura, my wife and I went, we were there with about 6, 7 other people. Some people from Europe, and some from the United States. But they basically broke them down into 2 groups. Pam was in the first group, and she went with like Steve Lundblad, guys from Portland, other people from Canada, stuff like that. So they were in the first group, we were in the second group. And so there was a big learning curve with the first group, so I'm kind of glad we went to the second group. The first group they tried things out on, and once they had them fixed up, then we show up in the second group, and we're all set and ready to go. So, well, we both went to the same place, but had different stories. So that's the one that we kind of go with. He sets up the criteria, where we're going, when we go collecting, and what we're going to go look at. And as we go on these boat rides, we go around, you see the fishermen's villages along the side there and stuff. And so then we get to the spot, we go diving. So this is my wife Carol, she's about 60 feet of water. And once again, you got to bring all your gear. You got to make sure it works. There's no place to get it fixed. Now I brought a little thing, if anybody here dive? Okay, divers, you always take that in this little save and dive kit, right? It's got replacement O-rings, got replacement straps for your fins, for your mask, things like that. So I brought a save and dive kit, but we pretty much had bought everything new or rented it new. I went down there.
Yeah.
And I went through my whole save and dive kit, but none of it was for us. It was for everybody else on the boat. Because the O-ring didn't work on their regulators, and so, do you have an O-ring? I guess so, here you go. And it worked for them. I hope I don't need one. You know, someone else broke a strap. So, if you go, you gotta make sure your equipment works. So you guys bought new BCs when you guys went.
Yeah, you
Bought
did,
new, we rented
yeah.
ours when we went. You gotta make sure, and you can go and not be certified. They'll just give you stuff. They don't care if you drown.
Not at all.
So, yeah, you
They
just
get your
swim,
stuff.
you know, yeah, go to Africa and swim. So be trained, be familiar. Stuff does happen. Steve Summermeyer had some episodes where he came up too fast and got the bends. There are divers from these collecting stations that do die. A lot of them are on hookah systems with the hoses. They go down, the hose gets pinched, they die, and then they pop up later on. The guy just wants his regulator back, so he gets the hose back, leaves the guy, here's your friend, you know, who's next? Because think about this, you're going to send down guys that, you know, you can breathe underwater. What? Oh yeah, you guys can breathe underwater. Just put this on, it's like magic, you can breathe underwater. I don't think so. So you have to have someone that trains somebody else that'll go back up underneath there. What's kind of funny is we talk about the bends. You guys know what bends is. You come up too quick, the nitrogen builds up in your bubble. Yeah, you get your joints all hurt because you got nitrogen bubbles in them and stuff. Well, Toby goes and these guys were all hurt and complaining because they weren't properly trained. So he's got like this Costco thing of aspirin, and the guys are coming by and he's giving them like handfuls of aspirin. Right?
Literally.
And so Toby said, "Are you nuts? You give the guys aspirin, and they're eating them all." He said, "No, they are they?" He goes, "Yeah, look, they're eating like M&Ms, like this, you know." He goes, "Well, that can't be good." I said, "No, it's not." I said, "What are you doing?" Well, then we looked on the bottle, and the aspirin was made in Tanzania. And luckily, each aspirin is only about 1/5 of a normal aspirin. So you have to eat 40 of them to get the equivalent of 2 of our aspirin. That's how dilute works. That's why the kids are all like this with him. It also fills them up. They don't have dinner anymore. They'll fill them on aspirin. But things do happen, so if you do go, be trained. So we go down there, and what are you going to see that you don't see in the aquarium trade? Well, except for Rich, this fish that hardly ever comes in the aquarium trade. Any of the Petrochromis types. You got this little Tropheus, they get maybe 3 or 4 inches long. Petrochromis is like a Tropheus on steroids. You get maybe 8, 10 inches long. They got a mouthful of teeth for buffing algae off rocks. They're very, very aggressive. They're very territorial. So imagine trying to, how big a tank would you need for these? How big is your tomato tub? 4,000 gallons? You probably get 3 of them in there. When you change this water where they can see each other, you're down to 2. So you got these big but very pretty fish, but a lot of these fish, the Abuna types, they make a living by eating algae off rocks. And so they have different kinds of teeth to scrape algae off rocks. And those same teeth are pretty deadly weapons when they start turning them on each other. Especially when you got fish that are defending territories. Now this may be his territory, this whole giant rock here, but he needs to defend that territory. If he doesn't, other fish are gonna come in and eat his algae. So he's kind of been evolved to the point where they need to be aggressive to survive. The bigger your territory, the bigger your feeding zone, the more likelihood you're going to be able to survive. And also you're going to be able to attract females. You got a nice big patch of algae, females going to come over, you got a better chance of breeding. So that's a lot of reasons why these things are so mean, because they're so territorial. And how tough that would be to kind of duplicate in an aquarium. Try to give them a territory so big. So that's why in the aquarium trade, you know, we think 8, 10 inch long fish, we get to 100 gallon. Well, that's nothing. It's only a 5, 6 foot long space. In the wild, their space may be 30, 40 feet. So that makes them extremely challenging to keep and spawn, which means it's ideal for Rich. You see all these little Tropheus types in here. Little Tropheus kind of work in the little smaller rocky areas, the little nooks and crannies up in there. And there's different color varieties or geographic varieties of Tropheus all over the lake. So every time you go somewhere different, you see a little different, either a different species. At the time we went, there's only a handful of species. Now there's up to probably like a dozen different ones. They're breaking out the rainbows, and once they start doing more DNA and other stuff, they make more and more species out of these. But every time you go in the water, you see a whole different kind of little Tropheus in there. Some of the feather fins. Now here you got Ophthalmotilapia ventralis. These are the tip of the ventral fins down there, and they kind of use them like the egg dummies. So they twirl them back and forth. The reason I'm showing this shot, there's another fish right there, another male. Well, right now they're fighting. They can barely see each other. You can barely see them. And they're flaring 15, 20 feet apart because they can see each other, chasing each other away. He's flaring, doing little figure eights here, going stay away, and he's doing the same thing. I'm going, who the hell is he talking to? And he's like way over here to this other one. So in an aquarium, imagine trying to breed, once again, 40, 50, even 100 gallon tank where you got these two males who are obviously in the same territory, you're asking for problems. In the wild, they're much farther away. How big is their territory? Depends how clear the water is. The clearer the water, the bigger their territory. Once again, if they see some other fish that even looks like them, they are all lit up, dancing around doing their thing.
How big does that fish get, Chuck?
Ventralis not very big, 6, 7 inches. In the wild, they're not very big, but in the aquarium, they probably get a little bigger, maybe 7 to 8 inches. Yeah. Most, one other thing you learn is wild fish are usually much smaller than tank raised fish. Number one, they probably don't live as long. In the wild, maybe you live 2 years. That's what Leif figures out from Old World Exotic. In the aquarium trade, when Leif keeps around until they quit breeding, so they may go 6, 7 years, and then they tend to get bigger, look much nicer. So when you see these males all fighting to hook up each other, they chase each other into these nets that the fishermen lay out every morning. They put rocks on the bottom to hold the bottoms down. They put pieces of wood to float up at the top. And these squares maybe 2 inches. It looks like volleyball netting. You figure, how stupid can these fish be to get caught up in there? Well, what happens is they're fighting. They're looking at each other, and it's like invisible. So eventually one gets caught up in there. And so it's not too bad. They catch the excess males. And fishermen get something to eat, but unfortunately now it's like mosquito netting. They're catching everything, so nobody gets away. They're catching the little ones, the tiny ones, and I'll get more into that with the other stuff later on. Once you go into the water and stuff like that, a lot of fish you don't see in the aquarium trade is because they just don't look for them, or they can't find them. This is like these guys are really shallow. They dive in the water and boom, you're already past their zone.
Yeah.
These guys live on top of the rocks. They can't compete with the Petrochromis or the Tropheus, and so they live up on the tops. Now, there's lots of algae up there. There's not so much surface area. There's a lot of birds up on top there. Kind of pick them off too. So these little guys here kind of just hang around the tops, but they're fairly rare in the aquarium trade because nobody is looking for them. And you come up and you're out of air and you got puddling over side, you see this stuff all the time. You go see breeding pairs of stuff. What you have here is the female down here, she's about 4 inches, the male's up there is about 6. These are Lepidolamphrologus attenuatus. These babies are big. They hung their babies for a long time. And look how big this territory is. This is like 6 feet across. Now what they're protecting them from is the other little Lamprologans and stuff, trying to pick them off there. You try to breed these guys in an aquarium with other fish, forget it. They're taking over the whole tank. You got 100 gallons, no problem. These guys are fast enough and they got enough teeth, little canines, they can defend their territory pretty darn easily. But it's kind of neat. A lot of lamprey logans you always kind of saw in pairs. At least I did. They were always kind of paired up. They weren't too far apart. Other things that you don't see in the aquarium trade, unless you go to Rich's house. It's Pericidos microlepis. Well, what's the matter with this fish? Well, it's not very aggressive, doesn't get very big, kind of cool looking, but it eats scales and fins. That's what it eats, it's a scale nipper and stuff. So you really don't want those in one of your aquariums where it's making everything else look like crap by biting and ripping the fins off the side. But they did come in. At one point in time when they were shipping everything in, they did show up. And some people do request these just for something different that they haven't bred before. Guys like Rich and I that have been doing this stuff like forever, we're running out of fish. So this is our next challenge. This is what we're going for here. Now we're going to be able to sell the babies until we find 3 other people as thick as us that want us, but you know, it's something different that we haven't had. It's a new challenge.
They're not aggressive with each other. They're fine.
Yeah. Just put something else in there with it for a minute and watch what goes on. So these are the new challenges and stuff that we got coming up. Other things you see. This is a nest from one of those feather fins. And where's the sand? Oh, this is like rocks. This thing's going like way over here, probably 30, 40 feet, picking up a little mouthful of sand, a little pinch, coming back and making this nest that's like 3 feet across, a foot high. How long is it take him to make that nest? So you know what happens in the aquarium? He takes all the sand, mounds it all up into one side, because that's what they do. He's not going to go 20 feet away, but if you get a big enough tank, you go get it, just to stock it up there. Other things you see is fish you don't normally put together. So what I got over here, I'm going along, I see these 2 pair of Dickfeldi over here, Gelitochromis, they got babies, or like Ron likes to call them kids. So they're defending their kids, and here's this big Lampologus. It's coming along, it's about 8 inches long. It's starting to pick off their babies. And so they come over to defend it. And this guy grabs mom between the eyes. So he's got mom in his mouth, and dad's over on the side here and start whamming him because now he can't bite him anymore. And so they're in there, and eventually, while he had the one tied up, the other one came around and beat him enough to finally he spit out the mom and he took off, and they were able to chase him away. This is stuff you don't do in the aquarium trade that you kind of see out there. Kind of like at the zoo, they put lions in with giraffes, and all of a sudden, hey, what's going to happen? Well, you get jumped like this. So you don't think about this sometimes when all these fish were coming in, you wouldn't know, oh, they come from Tanganyika. All this stuff can go together. No, it can't. Rod's going to be up tonight. Lions with giraffes. That would be cool.
I'm going to look for a YouTube video right now.
Yeah. That's going to be Rod's zoo when he sets it up. You know, it's going to be action packed. Okay, now we come over here to Coquimba, and we got the Neolamprologus poultry, the daffodils. This is almost like an ant colony. Thing's only 300 feet long, about 300 feet down the shore. Every fish in there is the same. It's all these daffodils. They're solid from the very top to the very bottom. Now the bottom turns in the sand, and there's 2 sandy areas on both sides. So the only place these daffodils come from, they're like the yellow Burchardes, in case you haven't seen them before, very pretty. They only come from this one area. So if the predator comes over, these guys are like ants. All of them come over and start chasing big predator and stuff away. So these guys, this is the only fish you find, but you find all different sizes. Babies, tiny fry, middle, 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. All the way up, everything is there. Only in this one spot. You don't find them anywhere else in the lake. These lakes are little. They're the size of the Central Valley. 50 miles wide, 450 miles long, and they're only found in an area the size of this building. Kind of interesting. Once again, we go down here and here see the Lampologus types. Always kind of hanging out in pairs, which I thought was interesting. Other things to find down there to eat all these things. Electric catfish.
Cool.
They get big. They get like 2 feet. They just don't like those. You know, they're not quite figured out what electricity is yet, let alone this fish can zap them. And they don't quite know what's going on when that happens. Do you guys keep shell dwellers? Well, this is a shell bed down in Bede, where the shells are. The shells may be over 10,000 years old. There's the water, the calcium is so high in the water that the shells don't dissolve. So the shells last almost indefinitely. But they do break down. Eventually, they get little shell dwellers here. I think little signatus and stuff back in there. It's kind of weird. Just go through this cloudy water and all of a sudden, boom, it shows all these shells and stuff up underneath. Down south there, you see little mustaches. In the southern part of the lake, you see mustaches. You don't see any lupi. The lupi are in the northern part. The two don't overlap. A couple of Taxodon microleptis, big open water types. They get kind of big. Here they are. They both share babies. Is that right? They're biparental mouth breeders, where they spit out the babies and the other one picks them up, hangs on to them, and the other one goes to feed. Very rare in the hobby. You're never going to see them at the store. You ain't going to see them at Petco anytime soon. Yeah, Rich, of course, always has these special orders from anybody. They come in like one at a time over a couple of years, and eventually he gets enough time and money into it where you can get a couple together to maybe make something happen. The big feather fins, there's the Versifers and the Foes. One tends to be a little bit deeper water than the other, so they almost look indistinguishable in the wild. It's kind of interesting. We're over at Gombe, that Rich likes to say. And here's this little Bouchardi, but look, you take the picture, look, there's electric catfish and stuff in the back. So when you take these pictures, all kinds of little things hiding up around there and stuff. Now we're over there on beach day and stuff, and we talk about how old the lake and stuff is. Here you got these massive cephalus eels. You know, so it's kind of like it said, they're 20 million years old. So you got eels, you've got crabs, you've got almost like a little ocean there. Sponges. In fact, the first jellyfish, in fact, the first explorers thought they hit the ocean when they saw here because of all the stuff that they found. And so you got little eels, and a lot of eels are cool, but they get big. What's your biggest Afromesocephalus eel?
Yeah, well, there's one that goes over 3 feet, right?
Yeah, so especially like your little spiny eel, 3 feet long. What's cool? It's cool. Like, is that the zebra one?
Oh yeah, Plagiostoma.
Yeah.
What's the fish up top, Chuck? Let's try.
That's a Lobochilotes. It's got big lips and stuff on it, and they're kind of aggressive. They just have stripes. You really don't get much color on them.
Kind of aggressive? That
Yeah.
is a
It's an
mean
aggressive fish.
Well, they don't have much color. They got these big stripes. They pretty much don't tolerate themselves or anything else. And so you don't see them in the aquarium trade. These are little Tomatochromis, kind of like pseudo-julies. They're like another fish trying to be like a Gelitochromis down underneath there, which are kind of cool. See lots of catfish, especially if you go diving at night. Rich went diving at night out there, so I quite a few catfish.
Is that a Boreae down below, or is that
That one there? And the Chilotes. They're all hanging around here. But you go in there, you get these Synodonts catfish. What's interesting about these is when the cichlids breed, the catfish go in there and distribute their eggs, and the cichlids pick them up. And then, like what we call the cuckoo method, the catfish baby hatches first, eats all the cichlid babies, and then when you go to strip them and come out, you find a catfish in the cichlid's mouth. Down deep, this is 100 feet. You hear about the Victoria thing with the Nile perch. Well, Lake Tanganyika has Nile perch. So you always recognize them because their eyes light up, especially at night. You even see them in the shallows, the flashlights. Deep water predator. So any of you that keep Cyprichromis, look at this guy, it's at 120 feet. You see the Lamprologus down there still picking on, but look at all these Cyprichromis. Cyprichromis are like little cichlids that are trying to be like sardines. And they're kind of like semi-headstanders in the aquarium trade. They're all kind of like down this for a little bit. Well, if you ever wondered why, it's because they're always looking out for these guys. And so what happens is you have them in the aquarium. These are really well known for being jumpers.
Oh, yeah.
Any kind of shadow comes by, right, Jim? You have them all the
Lights
time.
off.
Yeah. Lights off, fish out. Turn them on, pick the fish back up, put them in the tank, and try to duct tape the openings and stuff on there. So big schools of these open water cichlids, watching out for these predators that come up from underneath. Here's something else that you're not going to see too much in the aquarium trade, but once again at Rich's house. Polychromis microleptis, largest cichlid in the world, one of them, depending on, you know, the aquarium stuff versus the wild. Males 3 feet, females 2. So these little dots, those are eyeballs of babies. It's going to be tough to breed them in an aquarium, don't you think? Right now, if that's 3, it's about a 30 by 30 area that you have just to keep the fry and stuff contained. What's interesting about these fish is once they breed, they never eat after they breed. So you go out there and you see like this one big fish that'll be left, and they're like the babies are 6 inches long. One of the adults will die, the other one's old and decrepit. Oh, I'm keeping up with you guys. Yeah, I'll defend you. I got it going. These guys have like 5,000 babies at a time. Big substrate spawners. You see them sometimes in the aquarium trade. Sometimes they spawn them in Florida, or they catch wild ones and bring them in. So they're pretty expensive, but not everybody wants them.
What was it just before that shot? Before the blend drums? I thought you missed the
Oh,
shot.
that's the Beatty's minor. That's like a barracuda, freshwater barracuda, little skinny chase down predator type that some people really would like to get their hands on, or have had a couple of them now and then. But the trouble is getting up them in quantity. They come in so rarely, like I said, once maybe every 3 months, and maybe an adult, maybe get males, and then 2 years later another one comes in. It's just really hard to try to get them matched up because they're not that readily available in the hobby. Sometimes a lot of stuff is deep water stuff. So they try to bring it up, and just like we talked about the people getting the bends, well, the fish get the bends too. You can't bring them up too quick, or else the fish get sick. Like you go fishing, bring the fish up, that kind of thing. This is not a frontosa. This is another one of those plecodus types. These are scale algae eaters. They were coming in with wild shipments. A lot of people thought these were the female frontosas.
Oh no.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, Robert at
Really?
Robert's store. He got these in. He thought these were the females, and he wanted to sell one with the other. He wouldn't break them up. I tried to convince him this is not the same one. You know, it's a whole different fish. And of course, at the time, there's no books, not much in the way of the internet, because the fish were so rare. So what this guy does, he hangs around with the frontosas in schools, and when the frontosas are sleeping at night, he goes in there and just feeds on the scales, just tears them all up, and this fish gets fed for the night. So, have you ever tried to catch Malawi fish in your aquarium? They're pretty tough to catch. They're pretty fast. They're pretty agile. How do you think they catch them in the wild? These big open areas. How do you catch them? Well, we asked them to show us how they caught it. So they go down here, and a couple of divers are now setting out nets. And so what they do, they kind of set up like a wall. And then what they do is they kind of huddle and chase the fish into this wall. So they come in there with sticks and things, kind of poking in little nooks and crannies, flush the fish out, and get them to come over to the side. So right in front of Toby's place, these guys spent 5 minutes chasing these fish out, set it up, to see what we could catch. So they took these nets out. You see the net's not very big. Just like a little seine that you can buy at sporting goods stores and stuff. They take the fish, dump them out. You look in there, and most of them are those open water Cyprichromis that we were looking at. There's lots of different species. Some are shallow, some are deep. Some look better than others. But there's a few. Look, we got Lamprologus over here. Probably got like a mustax and some other stuff mixed up inside there. Yeah, some
Yeah, I
It's
see
like
these two
trichoty?
trichoty right in front in the lower right-hand corner.
Yeah.
There's,
Oh, yeah, that's a trick up here.
Yeah.
and then there's another one just to the left of
Yeah.
the laying.
So right in front of the place, we yeah. So all these different fish just by chasing stuff up. Yeah, heck, we didn't know those were there. 'Cause you look at the slide. This happens a lot. Okay, now these guys are going on a fish collecting expedition. So what they do, they got these barrels here. They take no food, no water, but just enough gas to get themselves back.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Just enough gas to get themselves back. So they're going to go to the other side of the lake to catch some black calvus. So what they're going to do, they're going to sleep on the beach. They're going to pour the water in the fish they have in these 3 barrels. They're going to change water every hour. Once again, no electricity, no gas, and that's what they're going to do. They're going to eat the excess fish that die. They're going to make little soups and stuff like that, but they essentially take only gasoline with them as any kind of provision. I wonder where the dead fish go. Well, at Toby's place, they did have crocodiles and stuff there, and we ate crocodile one night. In fact, we had a chef with us, and the chef was from the Carnivore Restaurant in Nairobi. If you guys have ever heard of that before, it's a restaurant that's famous for African game. Okay, they do antelope, all this kind of weird stuff. So we had a chef come over, and he was going to cook crocodile for us. So you basically eat the tail, like alligator, stuff like that. So everything had been great the whole time. I guess, did you bring mesquite? Were you the one?
One me.
Someone brought mesquite, and all of a sudden they smoke things in the African wood that really doesn't have much taste. And somebody brought mesquite, and all of a sudden this thing just tasted like a big chunk of mesquite because he just smoked the hell out of it. So nobody liked it. So, but we liked everything else throughout the week. So my wife goes in and says, yeah, I want him to feel bad because all this food's coming back. And she goes, yeah, I didn't want you to feel bad. We just didn't really care for the crocodile stuff. And so the guy goes, yeah, well, crocodile is really not my specialty. And she goes, oh yeah, it's not, no. What's your specialty? Monkey. Also, an alligator, a crocodile's not looking too bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some reason, you know, Rich with reptiles and stuff decided he had to pick up a crocodile just and there's a whole different talk that I'll do someday and how this came to happen. He just didn't walk in and pick this up, okay? There's a whole another half a backstory that goes with this that we don't have time for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lots of,
So Rich and I were watching the sunset. Everybody's going, oh, it's a beautiful sunset with all the smoke from the fires. Kind of made like the clouds and stuff over there. So we're looking over there, we turn around, and Rich and I see this little snake. So Rich and I kind of being the pseudo-herpetologist type, thinking, hey, this is pretty cool, let's see if we can catch it, you know. So we're playing like crocodile hunter, oh, Mike Grumpy here, you know. Rich is pulling out his tail 4 feet away, and I'm on this side of the bush, and all of a sudden this thing springs up, its head puffs up, it gets a big S-hook, and this is what they call a twig or a bird snake. And look at the rest of the body, it looks like a branch, and only the head was green. We're very lucky even to have seen this thing. So Rich is picking on the tail, making crocodile hunter noises, oh, Grumpy, yeah. I'm over here going, wow, Rich, look at this thing, this thing's going nuts. He goes, Rich goes, yeah, I think these are the ones they catch like in the pet shops and stuff. They sell like vine snakes.
No.
I said, really, Rich? They said, where do the ones come from in the pet shop? He said, I think they come from like Vietnam or Asia. I said, we're in Africa, so we don't know what this is. So then, guys who know Robert Shields sees this, and Robert's kind of a pseudo-herpetologist. In his mind, he's a real herpetologist. But so what happens, Robert looks at this and he goes, Chuck, you didn't pick that up, did you? I said, maybe. He said, that's a bird, that's a bird twig snake. That thing's poisonous, man. He said that thing here, what happens is when it bites you, it makes an anticoagulant. So you basically bleed out of your orifices. You bleed out your eyes, your ears, leave the rest of your imagination. There's no antidote. So what they have to do is give you transfusions. Okay, let me see, you're in the middle of Africa where AIDS is about 80%, they're going to start getting transfusions. Yeah, want to go now or you want to go later? not the way to go. So, anyways, that was our... luckily, we didn't get bit. We figured out it wasn't the right one. We left them alone. This is Clambeau Falls. This is, you didn't want to go see fish, you go hiking. As we like to call the Bataan Death March. Okay, so you can hike all the way up here. Lake level is way down here, okay? We are way up here, top of the mountain fall. Look, we're on top of the mountains now and stuff. Okay? What? 2,500 feet. Sure, I'll go with that. Felt like it. 100-degree heat. They give us 5 gallons of water, which everybody else drinks before you get any. Because it's so hot. So you get up there. Now this side is Tanzania and this side is Zambia. So a lot of people decide, oh, let's go over and hike to the front of the falls. Okay. Here's the path. It's not like Yosemite. There's no little steps. There's no little guardrails and stuff. People do fall off and people do die. They do fall down there. You're not going to see any pictures from me up at the mouth at the top there. You can see it just fine from here. But this was a pretty tough hike. My wife had like legs all cramped up because of the heat. You know, probably easy in the hundreds. Climbing up all these rocks and stuff. And, yeah, it was not fun. We all came back, swore we'd never do it again. And then the sun sets over Tanganyika. So here we got the fishermen collecting their nets, all the smoke from the fires, making for lovely sunsets, kind of wrapping it up over there. And then if you ever go to Tanganyika, there's books there, Bug Marsh Bulletins you can read from Lewis. This is the gift shop, aka bar. So lovely parting gifts on the side there, made by local craftsmen. If you go there, you get choices of what you want to drink. If you didn't like the lake water, some of you kind of oohed on about that. You got Sprite, Coke, you got beer. Now, we kind of went back and forth over which one was worse. Mostly was made locally, and it's made out of sorghum. So if you guys ever have like gluten-free beer, you know how terrible that tastes? That is this. Castle at least came from South Africa, and this is the stuff nobody else wanted to drink. So this made it back and forth. So we go, oh, we'll drink Mosey for a while. You know, this stuff tastes pretty bad. Yeah, I think so. We gave up on that. Drink this for a while. At the end, we're all drinking lake water. That's how bad it was.
The only thing worse was the coffee.
Yeah, coffee with the
That coffee was gaggable.
So now, that was in 2002, so now we're going to go to a different lake. I'll prepare them now. So we're going to Malawi now. And we go to Stewart Grant compound, and this is a little different. You show up at the airport, it picks you up in a couple of vans. Now there's two vans, there was a green one and a white one. Remember that Odd Konings guy who kind of led it? You get in the same van he does, because he knows which one has air conditioning. He knows which one the air conditioning works in, okay? So if he gets in the white one, you get in the white one. If he gets in the green one, you get in the green one. Very simple, do what they do. So we come there, and instead of being isolated far away from everything, this is like right at the edge of town. It's got electricity, there's people around, there's roads, all kinds of stuff going on up here. That means it's got additional problems. You're too close to everybody that's got nothing. So you basically build this thing like the Alamo, little Fort Knox over on the sides. Big walls up around the side trying to keep people out because people will jump over to try to steal stuff. So this is Stewart. Unfortunately, he had passed away. He was an English seaman that when Malawi was a colony, he was working down there. And when they got their independence, he stayed down there. Decided he wanted to help the people, married a Malawian woman, and set up a shop down there and was exporting tropical fish. And there's a whole bunch of peacocks and stuff there named after him. Olankara Stewart Grantai. He pumps his water in from the lake, but he doesn't have a big tank up on top of the hill. He's flat, so he puts it in these giant doughboy pools. He's got covers over it so it doesn't create algae, as opposed to the hot stuff that we talked about before. The reason, oh, by the way, the reason that was hot is you saw those black hoses coming down. We'd be gone all day and all the water sat in those black hoses. Those black hoses sitting on the rocks would turn to about 140 degrees, and that was the cold water. So you go take a shower and get scalded, and you end up taking baths in the lake. So over here we got cool water though. He runs the pipes underground, so it is cool, not cold. And this is the fish house. So Toby's place was outdoors. This is the fish house over there, and very important. The only air conditioner is his office. So that was very good to know. If you needed to get cool, that was the place to go. So this is where she gets ready to ship fish out. They come in from Bass or from the wild, they go in here, and from here it's like a shipping station. Inside he's got tanks, it's all covered. In the winter it gets very cold there, it's a little bit further south, so a lot of those fish do get sick when it does get cold, so you have to keep it covered and contained when he gets ready to ship them. So the vats, he's got electricity, so he's got air lines, he's got filters in there. When he siphons the water out, it goes into these drains and stuff, so it's pretty well set up, much more sophisticated than over at Tanganyika. Here you got a guy by the name of Mason. Olankara Masonite is named after this guy. He's the guy that takes care of all the fish, or at least did at one point in time. Here he's checking the water temperature, like he could do something about it. So here we are, they're getting ready to ship fish. The biggest problem at the time was getting these boxes. They all had to come out from South Africa. They don't have styrofoam in Malawi. So they had to form them, ship them all up. So they take the fish, put them in the buckets, and they use Hypno, something that we used to be able to use to put fish to sleep for a while. It's also the same as a date rape drug. That's why we don't find it anymore. All these hobbyists were drugging their dates. So they put the fish in there, they drug them, and the fish is passed out, then they put them in these bags. They put oxygen in, there's no rubber bands, they just tie knots in the end, then put them in the boxes. Rich is going, I got Hypno still. Then they tape them up to ship out. And this is the way they go, just like this, all over the world. They usually go from Lusaka up to Nairobi in Kenya. Then from Nairobi, there's quite a few flights that go into Europe. So the fish, if they come to the United States, they may be in the box 40 hours straight. A long time, but they do fine. Different stuff they get, the Avadas types, some of the Mbuna, Trident tigers, when they're little, peacocks. Peacocks probably make up 60-70% of their orders. They're smaller, They're only about, adult peacock in the wild is only about 3 inches long. I know in the stores you're seeing about 6 and from the farms, but the real peacock's only 3 inches long in the wild. They don't have enough, are fed as much, they don't get fed as often or as good, so adult fish is not going to be as big. But in the aquarium trade, you have females that you can't sell. Those people that have stores and stuff, you got silver female peacocks all day long, you can't give them away. Males, you can sell all day long. So they bring them in because they can sell them. So outside the vats and stuff, you would catch fish and set them up to breed. Here you have the netting above once again. Once again, Stewart's a little more sophisticated. Has little tiles on there with the tanks and vats are all numbered and marked. The wide tanks would be for the haplochromin types. The little smaller vats would be for the Abuna, or the algae-eating cichlids. Vats like this are for the peacocks. Now, why are they separate? The females are very hard to tell with the peacocks, so they're almost indistinguishable unless you're Steve Lundblad out of Portland. He's got it down. So they rather have the fish jump out and die rather than contaminate the next colony over. See, we got the airlines coming in, all that good stuff. So in the back, we've got some specialty stuff. They go out collecting, they have an order, they said, I need 50 of these. They go out and maybe only collect 3. Well, that's not enough to ship. So we keep them back here until they get enough to fulfill an order, or fill a box or a half box. So some of the stuff they go out there and get, Asotilapia calyptra, great for breeding St. catfish, the sideline and like that. So those are only found in the weedy, shallowy areas. A little bit of Chromis ceruleus, yellow, very rare in the lake, extremely rare. Only come from a couple of areas. Only get a couple of them at a time. Probably take them 6 months to get enough to make a box at that. Wild ones are very expensive. He sells for 50 bucks. And the only difference is they're definitely a little more orangey. They were picking up some with some blue on the face that were kind of nice. But these are the Phenacylus over there. So he's got to collect enough to make it worth the while before he ships them. This is Stewart's house. All brick and concrete, double layer, so you get ventilation coming across, keep things cool. We stayed over here on the side. These are the chalets, so to speak. They're just basically concrete bungalows with metal tops. We got a thatched roof over here. This is where we all hung out for our meals and stuff, kind of like the A-frame over in Tanganyika. And look, we got satellite dish. A satellite dish. Still only BBC 1 at the time. I think they're up to 3 now. Or BBC 3.
The house had TV.
Yeah.
With that
So you go inside there, you got windows with glass on the side. And it's all set up with traditional English breakfast, things like that. So not too bad. Hey, it's Miller time. We got the bartender here. And the bartender is the local priest. All right, now think about this for a little bit. What a great employee you make. Number 1, he doesn't drink. That's good. Number 2, he's not going to steal. He's a priest. There's 2 big accolades right there. Number 3, he can read. He reads the Bible. So he can read the labels. He can make stuff up. So he goes through there, and then we got little different beers. We got Hunter's beer. We still got the same Castle crap in cans this time. We got Carlsberg beer, which is Step Up. And we got Malawi beer, Coochie Coochie. Coochie Coochie is morning. You can drink this beer all night long and still go to work the next day. That was their selling point. But look, he's got all these mixed drinks and stuff in the back here. That's where you get the Malawi gin and tonic. You know, if you forgot your anti-malaria pills, no problem. This is a local fisherman bringing catch for tonight's dinner. We got some Synodontis nyassa catfish, and he's got some Ramphichroma cichlids, big predatory type cichlids and stuff on there that we're going to eat for dinner. Okay, this is Stewart's wife. She kind of runs the compound. She was running, when Stewart was running the fish part, she was running the hospitality, the hotel part. So she's in charge of all the people that are getting stuff to eat, make sure your meals are taken care of, and things like that. These are our accommodations in here. Hey, a little bit better, huh? Not too bad. Hey, we got windows that open and close. We got electricity. Huh?
We had a fan, too.
We got a fan. Hey, we still got mosquito netting though. So what they did for Carol and I is they actually put the beds together over here for us. So we had our own little double bed kind of thing going in there. So the first night, Carol and I go in there and we're feeling little things jumping on us. You know, she's, Chuck, you feel this? I'm trying to ignore. Chuck, you feel this? Oh God, what is it? You know, and so we turn on the light. There's little moths that are in the bedding and stuff. Okay, no big deal. Moths that were kind of trapped in there and stuff. It happens sometimes, even at the best Motel 6s. So we get in there and we shake everything out. And we're all straightened out. Okay, we're good. And so we go back to bed and stuff, and then she falls asleep. I'm thinking about all the fish we're going to be seeing. I feel this rub up against my arm. He goes, I'm thinking, oh man, what is this going to be? I'm thinking, what eats moths? You know, I'm not worried about moths anymore. They're running around there. So I kind of move my hand over, my thing in there, and grab it, and I just throw it across the room. Well, then my wife jumps up because someone just ripped the earphones out of her ear. What's going on? What's happening? So she's bleeding from the ears. So I have to explaining now what's going on with this little ear. So I told you, a little another moth is in there, and when I went to sweep the moth away, I accidentally caught the wire on your headphones. Sorry. She's up all night. What? What? So it doesn't come without its perils and stuff. And here's our shower. We got hot and cool water. We got flushing toilets and stuff. Not too bad. Now you know why Stewart's place is all made out of concrete. This is a termite mound. These aren't the little termites that we get around here. He's like 2 inches long. So the wood there is not very good. So they go through, structures pretty darn fast. Other cool things that we find out there, these are a couple of weaver birds. Now what the weaver birds do is the predators are so bad in Africa on birds. These guys take their babies as soon as they're able to, they keep moving them every couple of days. And the babies kind of hide, and here they are just on a palm frond, hanging on with their feet, trying to look very inconspicuous. Mom would come over and feed them, and then a couple of days later she'd go move them somewhere else. Just try to keep the predators and stuff away. Little glass frog, during the day when it was hot, he made like himself a little bubble on top there, and just kind of lived inside his little bubble, and then at night would come out. Weaver birds. It's like right outside, chirping like crazy. They're all chirping, going around. These things are bobbing around. The birds landing and stuff. Just commotion all day long. These things never shut up. So they have little lizards around here. You already knew that Rich and I are kind of like a pseudo-herpetologists here. Rich wasn't on this particular trip with me with Malawi, but I said, oh, I'm going to get a picture of this guy. So I snuck up over a window. Oh, he'll never see me, and there he is looking up at me. Very fast, because it's very hot, and they're, we use the term cold-blooded, but it's 100 degrees, everything's hot-blooded. So they're very active, very agile, very aware of everything. Like I said, everything that moves in Africa gets eaten. It's not like, we're going to see elephants. No, you go to a park to see elephants. It steps outside, it becomes dinner. That's what all the animals are. All you see is their butt. Take it off. That's your trip to Africa on wildlife, unless you're in the park. All right, so now we got a little bigger lizard here. So what's going on? We're up eating breakfast and stuff, and in the chalet next to the river, you hear about everyone's screaming, crocodile, crocodile. There's a crocodile in the Germans' room. So Carol goes, come on, Chuck, you want to go see it, So we go down there and say, it's not a crocodile. Apparently you don't have Animal Planet in Germany. So this doorway here is 36 inches wide. So we got a pretty good sized lizard going on here. And he's kind of on this concrete, he's trying to run, and he's slipping and sliding, he can't get any good grips on him. And so they're poking him, he's raised up on his hind legs, his head's all puffed out, he turns into Godzilla, and the natives are beating him with brooms and mops, and the Germans are freaking out. And so Rambo will go handle this crocodile. You realize Rambo is a big thing in Africa because they show the same Rambo movie for 3 years in a row in Congo. They tried changing it once and had a riot. The reason they like the Rambo movie is when the guys come around, when they talk to Toby, he says, really don't have much in the way of police. How do they police little villages and stuff? Well, they do have, it's almost like a marshal in the Old West. He comes around once every 3 months to kind of settle disputes. He's judge, jury, and executioner. So he comes in there and he had the stick. Remember the sjambok?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. A plastic whip type thing that the Dutch used when they come around to beat slaves and stuff. So the gendarme comes around with a sjambok. And so 2 guys are arguing, did you steal it? No. Smack. You see it? No, smack. Eventually he beats him, the one guy confesses. Then the one guy confesses, he takes out and beats the crap out of him in the middle of town. Says, this is going to happen to the rest of you if you ever steal anything again. Well, unfortunately, the innocent guy got whacked a few times too. So everybody gets whacked, okay? And everybody hates the gendarme when he comes around because everybody's going to get beat. So their big thing in life, they want to be the guy like Rambo to go against the big sheriff and kick his butt and blow him up. So when this guy comes in, this is everybody's dream. So anyways, so Rambo's going to go in. So I chase this thing up inside here and I close the door. It's me and the monitor lizard in this room. Everybody's outside freaking out. Rambo's going to take care of this and
I
stuff.
went and got my camera.
Yeah. So Rambo comes back and he saves the day. Hey, Rambo's got it out of there. All I did was I took him in there and there's a closet door. I just pinned him behind the closet door and then put my foot behind there. You don't want to get bit by these things. They're not poisonous, but they do have bacteria. You guys heard of Komodo dragons. Komodo dragons carry a lot of bacteria and stuff on their mouth and you can get pretty badly infected. In fact, Komodo dragons like take one bite out of cattle and the cow dies a week later. So it can be pretty nasty. So being in the middle of Africa, I really don't want to get bit. I really don't want to get scratched. So you see I got one hand on his hips, the other hand on his shoulders. So he can't turn around and bite me or scratch me. So basically took him out. See the guy in the back with the mop? See the mop handle still there? He's hiding. And stuff. So we turned him loose, but that was kind of fun catching the monitor lizard. So this is the mall in Africa. So now we're getting ready. As opposed to Tanganyika where we traveled by boat, this time we're going to travel by car. So we're traveling up and down the coast, and then we're going to catch the boat in different areas. The boat went ahead a couple days ahead of us, and so we're waiting for the boat to get up there, and we'll catch up on it by car. So we're driving by a road up along the Malawi coast over on the west side there. So you see some of the roads are fairly well paved, and it's not too bad getting up there. We stopped by this area, Cheetah Lagoon. So if any of you guys go collecting, like Ron does, he stops where there's a creek next to the river, right? Next to the road. If you see any kind of body of water next to the road, you go check it out. Why? Because it's really close. So we're taking a note out of Ron's textbook here. Hey, we're by this water. Let's go see what these guys are catching. So we go in there, you see these guys with these big dip nets and stuff going in there at the Cheetah Lagoon. It's not in the lake proper, but it's in an estuary working its way out. So we're looking at it from the top. Look at this canoe. It's like 6 foot long, 18 inches diameter. It could roll over in a heartbeat. This guy's in there with a little 6-inch slot with his feet jammed in the middle there. So it's a hand-dug canoe. These things last about 3 years. It's, you saw the Malawi boats where they had the planks and they're putting stuff together. Over here, they got enough trees that are big enough they can make these dugout canoes. Turns out all they were catching is kind of a tilapia type of cichlid. Not very ornamental, not very big in the hobby whatsoever. So now we're on the boat, we're going around, and we're on the Chisinau Island here. And so I call this Gilligan's Island. This is one of the islands out in the middle there. And this is what it looks like living on the boat. We got a compressor here that fill up our gas tanks, and this is kind of what we took. I took 2 of these, my wife took 2 of those, and that's what carried our gear for the 3 weeks that we were there. Went on there and went back. We took our dive gear and stuff and put it all hanging up to dry. And we were lucky. We had a bathroom on our boat. Big deal, think about it. So I asked them, what did you guys do before you had a bathroom on the boat? And so I said, what we do is put you in the little dinghy on the side, row you in the shore, and give you a roll of toilet paper. But the dinghy leaked like all boats in Africa, so you have to hold it up while it rows you in the shore. You're holding this roll of toilet paper up, going in the shore, and you saw those native villages on the side? They think you're bringing them something. You don't see lots of white in Africa. So you're rowing in the boat, as you get closer, looking for some place to go hide, more and more people are coming up to the shore to greet you. And so you're there looking for some place to hide, everybody's following you around. So now we got a bathroom. So I told Odd, I said, Odd, why don't you get camouflage toilet paper? Have anybody heard about camouflage toilet paper? Yeah, I'm the only one. Yeah, he's right. Okay, good. So you can buy camouflage toilet paper. What does someone have camouflage toilet paper for? So you get these deer hunters that go out and shoot these deer called white-tailed deer. And these guys go out and they see anything white, they think it's a deer and start shooting it. Well, they shoot each other when you see the white toilet paper. The guys actually get shot. So they make camouflage toilet paper. So at Christmas time, So at Christmas time, I found some online, and I sent Odd 3 different kinds of camouflage toilet paper, 3 rolls of 6. I sent him a Christmas card. And on the Christmas card, I said, Odd, I'm sitting here in the smallest room in my house, trying to think what I can get you for Christmas. And there was the answer staring me right in the face. I said, I want to get you a present that would touch you like no other. So I sent that off, right? So that was his Christmas present. He sent me a Christmas card back. He said, yeah, around Christmas time I always think about my crappy friends too. These things you don't think about. You have to pay about toilet paper on the road going back and forth. She has some trips. No?
Minor details.
Minor details?
You know.
Pam went the first time. We've gone the second time. And what should we bring? Toilet paper. That's what she sells. Anyways.
Always be prepared.
Always be prepared. So over in Malawi, though, we got these little clouds out there. What the heck are those? Those are lake flies, like little midgets. So every 30 days, they lay eggs. And the eggs go down to the bottom, and then they hatch, and then they sprout on full moons. So we're over there looking at that going, wow, look at this. And so we're all staring at this one. We didn't realize our boat drove into another one. So they're so tiny, they're all over. We're like putting our respirators and stuff on, trying to keep these little guys out of our eyes and nose.
Yeah, they get everywhere.
We're bad. Here we are living it up on the boat. Lots of boat time. These places aren't next to each other. Imagine going here from LA 5 miles an hour on a boat. Not very quick. Lots of slow time. Lots of time to sleep, crash, do things like that. You don't get there. That's why it takes so long to do this stuff. Imagine the guys collecting the fish. So here at Nick's place, Chismulu, like I said, Gilligan's Island. It's great. This is where everybody's hanging out. He's got booze chest right here. But there's no nails. Everything's kind of tied together. There's an English guy that didn't like England anymore. So here's our deluxe accommodations. So $6 a night for the shack. This is inside. So you get a futon with your screen over the top. And here's your closet. There's rope going across. And you get the sand floor. What's great about the sand floor is you smooth it out when you go to bed. In the morning you wake up and see all the tracks of the critters that visited you overnight. You get to see the little snake trails, you get to see the spiders that went over, the whip scorpions, stuff like that. And my job every morning was to wipe the sand away before my wife wakes up. I mean, look honey, how'd you sleep? Yeah,
That's safe.
We did go camping too, so some places where we couldn't stay at chalets stuff. Odd had camp gear for us. Now, to give you some idea about the size of these tents, see this guy sitting here? He's as tall as the tent. These are only 5 by 5. I'm not 5 foot tall. Okay?
4-man tents, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
4-man tents. It must be for Oompa Loompas, you know? And my wife and I had to sleep in one of these little 5 by 5 tents.
Oh my God.
In there with our gear so no one would steal it up on the outside.
And I'm not 5.
Yeah. So this is the illustrious Odd Koning once again. Now, Odd has GPS. So this is very important. This tells you where a lot of the reefs and stuff are, so you know where to go. It's not like a road map, 3rd rock on the left, like everything's named. Hardly anything's named. But he knows where certain locations the fish were, and he keeps track of them on his GPS. Nowadays, it's a lot easier, but back then, 10 years ago, you realize this is pretty primitive, but he only knew where a lot of these things were. Just like we saw in Tanganyika, fishermen put out their nets, and here you got 2 Zoetrophia zebras that are fighting. They got caught in their volleyball nets. Here you see the rocks down below used for weights. There's wood once again up at the top. Now, all this is down fine mesh. It's not the open nets, open slot nets like they used to be. So they're catching everything nowadays. So we saw those trophius and those Zoetrophis eating algae off the rocks. Well, Malawi is very similar. Here you got these big schools of Pseudotrophius. See, Pseudotrophius, Trophius. Pseudotrophius eating off the rocks. Now, if one fish is big enough and strong enough, he can chase these other guys away. But sometimes you just get schools of these guys that just overwhelm and take over. So everything's eating the algae and stuff off the rocks there. Now, just like we had the Petrochromis, the big Trophius type over there, we have big Mbuna over there, Petrotilapias. This one there is Petrotilapia Niger from Kumbi West. Look at his mouth. Big wide mouth full of teeth, just like the Petrochromis. You don't see these in the aquarium trade, just like the other one. Big, aggressive, fish with big mouthful of teeth do serious damage. You do see some of the babies sometimes. The babies are kind of cool for some of the species. But overall, you don't see too many of these going in. Look at the yellow one. That one's very pretty. Kind of pastel blue fins with big yellow bodies like that. It gets 8 inches. You got a big enough tank, it's still kind of cool, but really aggressive. You notice you don't see too many other fish around, except for the other one there that's maybe a female. He's allowed to come into his territory. Let's look at the rocks. Here you see this little Labiatropheus Travisate from Zimbabwe rock. The rocks in Malawi are huge, like the size of this room. There's massive boulders and stuff up underneath there, so there's lots of places for the fish to eat the algae off of. And just like in Tanganyika, with the different trophias and different geographic also in Malawi you have that too. So here you see a full bornei with a kind of a white top on it over there. One with a little bit of orange on the fins, maybe a little bit darker. Here's one with a black mask in the front. So as you go around different parts, you see all these different kinds. Now some of them are modeled. You got this blotchy OB type over there. It kind of blends in a little bit depending on the territory you have. Not so much when it goes deeper. But some of the OB trophies are kind of nice. But look at it in the shallow. It's actually a camouflage in the shallow area. You get these blotchy rocks. This blotchiness, when a bird would come in diving from the top, the bird would go after the darker fish first. And this blotchy camouflage actually works and keeps the birds away. And that would be a survival mechanism. But it gets deeper, not so much, but definitely works on the top of the rocks. Different other fish that we get, Trophiops from Mob Rocks, male with the orange head, female's kind of the mottled one. Different zebra types. Here you see the one with the dark face. Same species, look at this one, different location, that black mask is gone, it's got this bright blue face on the front. Here's an all-white one. Then you get down to some deeper waters and stuff, and then you get more of the traditional zebra type. Over in Boy Island, you got yellow zebra. Now this here, it looks like a zebra, it looks exactly like the other one, but the teeth are different. But I can tell you it's a different species right away because of where it's at. It's not eating algae off the rocks, it's feeding on plankton up in the middle of the water column. It's a Cynotilapia, it's different than the Pseudotropheus. Pseudotropheus are down here eating the algae off the rocks. This guy's up here in the current eating plankton that's coming through. And this is his territory, wherever you can see. Other fish kind of got theirs all plotted out. Not as aggressive, kind of looks the same, a little bit smaller, but totally different fish. You can just tell by the location where they hang out. In deeper water, where you don't get any algae, you'll find these guys. There's plankton down there, but there's no algae. So if you go deeper, you start finding more different algae types. There's a bomb, though. It's not good about this one. The female actually stays blue. A lot of them, the females are ugly. They're blue or brown. Don't have any color to them. Here's the Afra over on Cobway. In areas where there's no sediment for algae to grow. Here you get these big, flat, white, open rocks. So there's no algae here. The sand covers it all. No place for the algae to grow. And you get this real elongate-looking Afra type that lives up underneath there. Then you got the Melanochromis types, or at the time, these are ones with the horizontal stripes. Nice about these ones, got the yellow female, this is a Johannii. Interruptus is broken up with a jewel spot up on the side. Parallels is kind of cool. So they used to call it the white Erotus. This is the male, this is the female. A lot of fish are sexually dimorphic. They don't look alike. So these guys here, they're actually, they pick the parasites off other fish. And so you get these big tilapia types, and they'll come over there. Well, when you come by with my arm, they think the hair on my arm is worms. And they think they're parasites. So they come through there and they start trying to pull the hair out of my arms, trying to free me from the parasites. And they don't just kind of pick on it. No, they do like the alligator death roll, where they're spinning, trying like hell to get it out. There's big schools of these. I was trying to get away from these guys. Turn around, there's like 100 of them following me. This guy, you can tell, P is covered in parasites. I actually have those fish. I like them a lot.
Yeah.
Here down 75 feet, the yellow labs. There's only one we saw. Only 2 of them saw it. So you'll be able to get a picture of it. Give you some idea how rare they are in the lake. There's definitely more in the hobby than there are in the lake. We get to some of these open areas where it's kind of semi-sandy, semi-rocky. Look at this pelvic chromis, long pelvic fin. Look at this guy with the fins going all the way to the back here. The old Longatus type that used to be in the hobby. Some of the fish only come from areas that were less than 50 feet. Now, why is it only less than 50 feet? Here we are in Taiwanese Reef, and here we see the Salazai, almost picked off from this one rocky outcrop. What makes it special? Why do we say 50 feet? What happened? Well, that's all the anchor chain they had. So you couldn't anchor anywhere deeper less than, you know, if you had a 100-foot reef, you couldn't anchor, so you just drift. So now they got longer anchor chain. But Taiwan Reef, where do you get Taiwan from? It's an African word for, it means Taiwanese, is lost child. So this reef is out in the middle of nowhere. We can tell where it is by looking at the birds. The birds will go down and pick the fish off against the rocks. Other stuff, red top Galleria, but look at the difference in the rocks that we're getting into now. It looks more like lava rock that you buy at the pet shop. Those big boulders and stuff that we saw over at Tanganyika. This is a great fish. If you ever have it, this fish has long ventral fins. Look how far back they go. But they're only solid to here. They flutter once they get this part back, and they flutter just like the feather fins in Tanganyika. We saw this guy was going back and forth, and he had like little legs that were dancing. Unfortunately, you keep them in the aquarium tray, but he started getting long, the males fight, they bite, they pick each other off. So you really can't see them in the aquarium tray. Other Pseudotropheus types, Barlowii. The Thrinops, kind of like a big geophagus that lives off the sand in Malawi. Isochromis. What's interesting about these fish, you see he's making a nest over here. Or a bower is what they call it. And a lot of times you tell the different species by the different bowers that they make. The way this one works is the female comes over, she lays her leg on the top of the slope. As it works its way down, he fertilizes it, then she picks it up. Now in the aquarium trade, when you put these guys in the aquarium, they take all the sand and they stack it up in one corner of the tank. All of it. Don't make a nest, they just make a big slope, everything. And so it looks like they're trying to get out, you know, once they get this. But look at some of the difference in the bower. Sure, you got this little one made here by this fish. This fish is only 4 inches long. He's got this 3-foot wide bower. It's about a foot high. Who dug this one? This is 6 feet around. Went across over there. It turns out it's a big tilapia type. Dug that out over that way. Some of the Mbuna that we associate with being mean and aggressive aren't. Some of them actually adapted to live over the sand. This is a pair, Pseudotropheus elegans. The smaller ones, Lanisticola, actually live in shells, so they're a shell dweller in Malawi. So these are non-aggressive, non-territorial, they're just out feeding on the sand, and they're very suitable for peaceful aquarium. Open water, the Haplochromins. Here we got the Phytochromis darky. You see the white up on the top, the dark up underneath. You don't see other fish in there because that's his territory, if he can see where you are. Over on the rocks, Taiwanese reefs, the Stevens eye. Price and notice. Once again, let's talk about reverse color shading. See how he's light on top against his dark bottom? He wants to be seen. Underneath, he's dark against this light top. It's counter shading. These are his colors to try to attract females, which just happen to be over here. And he'll spawn right in the middle. There's no digging, no nothing. He'll just do it out in the middle of the water there. That's his territory. As far as you can see, because the water is really clear. This is Morelli, female long ventral fins. Look, there's the females, big school of females go around looking for different males in their territory. Can you see the Borelli fry? They're camouflage. Because look, see when they turn to the side, you can see them. But the other way, those different colored fins make them look like the fish crap on the rocks. All this is fish crap on there. All the algae they're eating's got to go out somewhere. And so the babies blend in with the fish crap on the rocks. Here's two males that apparently the lake's just not big enough for them. They're fighting it out. And you see the bites on the fins and all that. There's like nothing else around. These guys got to have that little piece of the lake right there. Big Tropheus types, Oreochromis. These are the ones you see the eagles pick off when they're shallow in the water. There's big schools of females. There are like 30 or 40 of them. They're just taking their time, just cruising along. You can tell the Alanocaras are peacocks. These guys are different. They have pits underneath their jaws. They can feel vibrations in the water. So they dig down into the sand and pick stuff off. And they have their own little territories. The females don't. So this guy here, you see all this rocks? He'll be down in the ravine where the sand's accumulated, and that'll be his territory. So that little hole there, that's his spot where that sand accumulates. That's what he's guarding right there. And look between the rocks, there's a number of them in there, just between those different peacock types. This guy's up moving from one to another. We can see his territory all around up inside there. So he's guarding the sand while the other guys are guarding the rocks and stuff up above. The Jacob Farber guy types all lumped into the peacocks now. Unfortunately, they're hard to tell the females apart. This is a group of females going up and down the slope. There's probably 4 or 5 different species of peacocks there, but they're all females. You can't tell them apart. So the big problem was they ship them in, you can't tell them apart, you get hybridization, and only Steve Ludlad is pretty much the only guy I know that can figure out who they are and sort them all out. But these are the biggest complaints when they get wild fishes, they sent the wrong females. It's not really their fault. Then you get the piscivores. These guys are really cool. How are you going to catch these little guys? You figure it's really hard to catch those fish with a net. If you're another fish trying to catch them, how are you going to do that? This is Compressiceps. He's hiding outside these plants right here. And Compressiceps is real skinny and flat. And he's got a dark dorsal on the front, so he looks just like one of the leaves. So he's waiting for any of the babies to come out, and he's going to swoop down and pick them off. So in there, you can see the female. See the dark stripes? Look, she's green. Looks just like the leaf on there. So she's in there picking off the baby and bundas, all the little baby fish that are hiding in there. If she flushes one out, then the male will get it on the outside. The female, some of them come from areas where they're gold, and what they do is they come out of the sun. So they see their shadow down below, and they line up their shadow with where they're at, then they come down after them. Even the baby ones. You got little bits of Alcinaria, a little 2-inch Compressiceps trying to do the same thing. So you may want to think about putting those with baby fish in your aquarium. It would be cool to watch though. Now, we got these other fish, Nimbochromis. There's a handful of species, they all have different ways of ambushing fish. Some come along the side like Polystigma, waits in between the rocks. As the fish comes around, then he swoops around and gets them. Linni comes over the top. The other one that we have here, this is Livingstoni. Looks like he's playing dead. So he lays on the side. He has these big colors. Look how he stands out. Look, there's a fish over him right now thinking that he's dead. He lays down like he's ambushed. When the fish comes by, he jumps up and eats them. And then he goes back. Now, when males go to breed, they turn blue. They can't eat for a while. When they get hungry, they lose their blue coloration and have to go back to this modeling. So almost all the fish, except for like a couple species, cichlids and Malawi mouth brooders. And so what that means is they carry the babies and the eggs in their mouths. And here's this Polystigma with all these babies around here. These babies are big. This female is only about 8 inches. So as I'm coming over, as Ron says, the kids start freaking out and start trying to rush into mom's mouth. I said, I don't think they can all fit. But I'm getting closer. Look, they're all trying to fill up inside there. All trying to rush up into mom's mouth. And she's got them all in there. Look, she's like half the body. You see the buccal cavity up underneath, all puffed up back here. All these are full of baby fish. So some of you guys know Wayne Leibel. Wayne did a study to try to figure out what is it that attracts the babies to the mom. Why do they go in there? What do they do? They actually made like this model fish and got the babies to go over. Then he started cutting fins off and dots and things like that. And basically found out they go to a black hole. That's it. So I said, okay, I still remember his talk and that. So I go over here, and I see this Tridentiger babies over here, and so I make like a black hole over here. See if I can get them to come over. Look, they're going. And they get over here, and they're getting kind of close, and you'll see his mom over here doing figure 8s going, don't go, it's a trap. Come back, you'll never come back over here doing this. You know? So they come over, and now they're kind of panicking, because mom's kind of like, Mom, it's over there, but what's this going on over here, you know? And so anyways, but his little idea worked with Malawi fish too. You make like that little cave thing, and they start heading for it. Got crabs. Malawi's got crabs. They do come in sometimes. Some psychos order them, want them for the aquarium trade. They tear each other up. If you put them in the fish tank, what happens is crabs have exoskeletons, and when they grow, they shed. As soon as they shed, they become a mobile banquet block for the rest of the cichlids and instantly eat them. At 25, 30 bucks a shot, yeah, they're interesting for a while, but they will shed that exoskeleton eventually. And the cichlids will eat them probably when you're gone at work and not watching what's going on.
Here's the show.
They got catfish too, big catfish.
Oh.
They get like 5 feet long. If you're diving down there at night and it gets kind of dark, these things are coming around and look like sharks. It's kind of spooky. And so anybody know what noodling is? All right, my kind of crowd. So I see these guys that sleep during the day, so I'm thinking maybe I can noodle these big catfish, you know? So what noodling is, for those of you that don't know, you kind of make your hand like worms. And he goes around there, And this guy thinks it's worms, and he sucks your hand in. And then you make a fist, and then you can't spit it out, and then you pull this catfish out. Okay? Sounds like a good idea, right?
What could go wrong?
What could go wrong? So the natives there on the side, I tell them my plan, because they eat this. It's called capango. And so I go, but you know, what do you think about it? They don't have any teeth, do they? No, they have no teeth, man. But unfortunately, they have these two flat plates they use for crushing snail shells. So now I'm thinking, yeah, I could probably break my arm, you know, middle of Africa. Probably not the best way to go. So needless to say, we weren't noodling for catfish in Africa, but we did think about it.
They catch those online?
Yeah.
Delicious.
Yes, very tasty.
Very, very.
So over here, you see these little barbs. There's other things in these lakes besides cichlids, even though they make up the predominance. There's these big giant labial barbs that kind of run through there. There's also eels, Aphromasticembus eels, not as big as the Tanganyikan ones, but very pretty. This is a rosette one. Don't ask me how they catch these guys. Look at this thing. You try to catch them in a fish tank, you're tearing the whole tank up, you're there for hours trying to catch one in a 20-gallon. How are you going to catch it in a lake? I have no idea how to catch these. So they're really expensive, like 30 to 50 bucks. You know why? Because they can't catch them. They're there for half a day chasing them down. So here we are in Africa, kind of widen it up. And the natives always come out to see what's going on. So here you see him out there, I'm here in the water with this dumb French guy that was trying to hook us while he was fishing. So that's a beer story. So we're there, and these guys don't swim. If this kayak kicks over, they're toast. They don't swim. And so why not bring the kids out to something dangerous, you know? Oh, this kid's having a great time. This kid's crying like crazy. I'm trying to figure out what the heck this kid's crying for. Every time Daddy rode the oar, he clipped Junior's head with the butt end of the oar. Ow, Dad, ow, Dad, ow, ow. Dad was paddling out there to see everybody. Not good. So we're down the boat trips. Now we're going to take the car ride back. And so everybody gets loaded back to the car. And of course, you know, in California, we can't ride back in the cars. It's not seatbelts, but in Africa, anything goes. So we get to ride back. This is Steve Sommermeyer from Indiana. This guy is from Germany. Dave Toole from England. All riding back. So we're having a good old time. Finally get to go home, riding back. So before we went back, we went on a safari. So why not? You're in Africa. You want to see some animals? Best 20 bucks I ever spent in my life. You get in this little boat. Now, they did have a bigger one. And so they had to break us up into these smaller ones. The bigger one was all full of Japanese tourists the week before, and hippos knocked it in the water and crushed it. So, but they do have the smaller ones, they just got to break us up into two groups. Now here you got the observation deck, and here you got the toilet, which, you know, just goes down to the water down below. And 20 bucks comes with lunch, and you get 1 beer per hour. Very specific, 1 beer per hour. We call it the rich barley rule. Because the bigger Rich had been there once before. So we go in there, and we're going along the boat ride and stuff, and the Sheer River in the southern part of Lake Malawi. You see the marabou storks and stuff up above. Okay, it's cool. We haven't seen storks before. Go along. Hey, we're seeing hippos. Well, we knew hippos were there. Just tossed the boat the week before. So this is one on land. She's an egret up back. See, the egret's been there for a while. So the hippos actually don't eat in the water. They come out and eat the jungle brush and stuff along the side, but they live in the water to stay cool. Have to go along up. There we are. And there's hippos. Anybody been on the Jungle Cruise at Disneyland? Yeah. All right, you see where the hippo pops up, then the guy pretends to shoot it, it goes underwater. It's the same thing in Africa. That's the way it works. These guys pop up. Oh, what are you guys doing? Oh, and they go back underwater again. Then they pop up over here. And it's like whack-a-mole with hippos. But they're just curious. If they have babies and stuff, they get kind of mean. And so if you ever read Pierre Bouchard's Big Thick Tanganyikan book, he's actually got a chapter in there about diving with crocodiles and hippos. It turns out crocodiles are a lot like sharks. If you're at the water's edge or at the surface, crocodiles come up and get you. If you're in the water, they really don't bother you because once they open their mouth, it's kind of like a parachute. They stop. So they go past you, open their mouth, and turn sideways to go to bite you. He said the hippos, most dangerous animal in Africa. Kill more people than lions, everything else, is hippos. Why? People go down to the water, they wash, the hippos come out and get them. Plus they come out at night too. In people's villages, they raid their vegetable gardens. We didn't want Stuart's place with hippos out running around the camp. You know, stay inside, the hippo's out. Okay. You know, he comes up from the vegetable gardens and stuff at night. So anyways, he says with hippos really don't swim. They kind of run along the bottom, but then they kind of cruise up to the surface to breathe, but then they kind of sink on down. As long as you're not in between where he's going and where he's coming, you're okay. But if you're at the bottom, yeah, they'll run you over and try to bite you, or up at the top too. So that's the only part you got to really worry about. In Tanganyika, the hippos and crocs are pretty much gone. Malawi, they're very much around. Found elephants there too. Elephants were really cool. I actually see them in there just like a little hose, like a little periscope coming out of the water and stuff. This guy's mad. When his ears puff up like that, that's not good. We're thinking, okay, where could I swim to when the elephant attacks? You know? And there is the big bull elephant, which there's a female matriarch, but there's a big male that's by himself. That kind of wraps up our collecting trips and stuff. So as we like to say in Africa, is the Como, which means thank you very much. All right, we're going a little bit. Any quick questions? All right, I'll be around the rest of the night. Oh, yes, sir. You got a question?
It's been 10 years since you were there. Do you have a feel for how and what's changed? How things have
We
changed?
have a lady right there who just came back.
Yeah.
Let me just relay a little bit. You want to tell them? Because you were just there.
Yeah, there have been some things that changed, especially in Malawi, because they've had some governmental issues. And, their value of money is so low that you can see that that's really hurting the country itself. But basically, it's about the same. There's not a lot of infrastructure, not a lot of electricity, and you just, you go to see the fish, and so that's the most important thing.
Are the same fish still there, or some gone?
Pretty much. There are a few fish that have been over collected by the ornamental collectors. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to talk about Malawi conservation next month, so we can talk more about it then.
Anybody else? Yes, sir.
About the electric catfish, are those aggressive?
Well, what happens when I swim along, they stir up a lot of debris. And the cichlids come after the debris thinking it's something they come at. Then the catfish and the Nile perch, all that came after the fish. They came after the stuff that I kicked up. Once it was out there and the catfish thought there was nothing else, and the catfish turned around and zapped back in. The natives don't like it because they use like hydroquinine, is that the right word, that you squirt in the things to make them go numb? And it doesn't work on catfish. So they squirt it in there, go eat the fish, and the catfish will zap them. So that's why if you ever look at like the old Egyptian stuff, the Egyptians actually had like electric catfish hieroglyphs. That's what, don't catch it. So it was like, watch out. Yes, ma'am.
Is the Nile perch going to be a problem in Lake Tanganyika?
In Tanganyika, it's already there. The fish involved with them. The problem is they're talking about introducing Nile perch to Lake Malawi, where the cichlids did not grow up or evolve with the Nile perch. In Tanganyika, it's not a problem. There's already 4 different kinds of Nile perch. I think it's 4. 4 different kinds of Nile perch in Tanganyika. So the fish are already geared up. Like I said, the Cyprichromis already get their heads down, watching for them to come up. But in Malawi, the fish don't know about Nile perch. So there's been some talk about introducing them there. Luckily, it hasn't happened. But the Tanganyika is not a problem with those. That's not an introduced one. Victoria is the one that has introduced Nile perch. It's a big problem. Well, okay, once again, I'm here the rest of the evening and stuff. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys. We'll take a short break. Don't forget to vote for Wilco. And also, don't forget, if you want to run for office, please let one of us know.